This is a Bramble Jam podcast.
What's up, alumni? We are here live for a new episode of the Professor's Lounge.
I love it. Welcome to Girls Gone Hallmark, a Hallmark review podcast. I'm Megan. I'm a longtime Hallmark fan.
I'm Wendy. I'm a former Hallmark hater.
Today, as you may have guessed, we are joined by the one and only Benjamin Ayres. We are going to talk it all, but we want to jump. First of all, say thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And we want to talk real timely. Let's talk about, you just recently launched the Romance University Los Angeles t-shirt fundraiser to support those directly affected by the fires. How has the response been from the community so far?
The response has been amazing. As we were talking before we hit record, I was in LA the first weekend after the fires broke out. And I was down there writing, and it was interesting to be doing that, but at the same time, we had the TV on 24/7, watching what's happening. And then strangely, it was like blue skies and sort of like we even went into the Soho House, no smoke. I was in Hollywood. We were up in the Laurel Canyon and didn't smell smoke or see any. The winds had shifted by that time. But I was aware of all of the actors that I know in Los Angeles that were kind of boots on the ground trying to help. And it was such an overwhelming, quick response by people. And also a feeling of, well, what can I do? And I think it took me a little while to kind of wrap my head around. Ultimately, you're always like, how do I donate? Who do I donate to? How do I know it's going to the right place, the people being affected that really need it? And I saw John Brotherton out there, and he works with ROWW, and I was kind of watching what he was doing, and I was like, okay, well, I can kind of hitch my wagon to that. That's something I feel like I can trust. And I feel honored in a way that what I have started with Romance University has allowed for trust within the alumni to donate to us, to then trust me to move those funds to where they have to go. So I started with, well, why don't I, instead of just the donation, it's like if I designed a t-shirt with our logo that just says Los Angeles in it, kind of put it over the heart. And I was like, I'll charge $50, but 100% of the proceeds is a donation and you'll get a t-shirt out of it. I was also mindful of the fact that we've just gotten out of many events. The holiday season, people have spent a lot of money, and not everybody could afford that. So quite quickly, I was getting responses like, I wish I could help, but I can't afford $50. And then I decided, well, what I can do is set up just a donation link of increments of $10. And what's fun about it is we raise the money, and then I do like an Instagram live, and I call out everybody's name that has donated. So, to really thank them, make them feel even more involved in the community. And we did that last night. And I had John come on and talk about, what he's doing, what the foundation is to just sort of make people feel better about where their money is going, And then John and I today have been texting nonstop. He's like, what can I do to thank everybody? How can we? So now we're coming up with like a fun way to continue, just thanking everybody. But the response has been amazing. It's been thousands of dollars. So instead of it just being like, I only started it Friday and then we did our live on Sunday. And now I'm going to keep it open for the week and we'll continue to promote it. And if people, want, and then I'll continue calling out the names after the last name we called, which if I recall was Patty Tobin.
Hey. Well, I got to say, I ordered my shirt, and I did hear my name called out last night when I watched it live. So that was very exciting. Like, that's a super cool component that you add, because I think people, want to be, shouted out. So that's awesome. Super awesome. I can't wait. And I think I just got a notification that my shirt has shipped already. Is that possible?
It is. When did you order it?
like Friday or Saturday?
Yeah, I worked with a supplier that was able to turn them around pretty quick, so I was hoping to get them out as quickly as possible. And and the calling out, that's sort of what also led to with Nikki and Ashley. I did a thing in the fall called an Instathon. Do you remember telethons?
Of
Yeah,
course.
yes.
Like they're the best, right? And I was like, we should try a version of that, but for Instagram. So I went live with Nikki and Ashley, and I just said, okay, we're here for an hour. Anybody who donates is going to get their name called out while we're here live for this hour. And we raised, in a couple days, like $6,000
So smart.
for the Alzheimer's Association. And then Andrew went and did it with Tyler. They raised 10,000. Then Ashley went and did it. Like, so it kind of had this really cool ripple effect. Paul Green did it. I think in total, those raised a large percentage of everything we raised. It was pretty cool.
I mean, you're obviously super passionate about philanthropy while also being a busy working actor. How do you find the time to balance those two?
Like I didn't set out. You probably know the story of Romance University. It was like I was going to a convention and I just thought it would be fun to bring something to the table and give some stuff out. And I was in Vancouver drinking wine with a buddy of mine who was wearing his hoodie. He went to Harvard, and he was wearing his Harvard hoodie. And I said, it almost looks like Hallmark. And I was like, that would be brilliant. I mean, essentially, we have watched so many of these movies, everybody has, that they've kind of almost gone to a romance type university. And the driver that was driving me to set, like 2 days later, I remember thinking, like, we just got into a conversation, and I say, because he does it part-time. I said, what do you do when you don't do this? He said, I'm a graphic designer. I said, no way.
Wow.
I said, would you be willing to design something for me? I said, I kind of want the Harvard logo, but I have this idea for it. He goes, sure. And he turned it around. And on that trip to set, I get there and the producer walks up to me and hands me a button. And it says, stop the fear or something like that. And he's like, cool, right? And I was like, it was like coming out of the pandemic and all this. And I was like, yeah. I said, where did you get this button made? And he's like,
funny.
oh, I don't know. He's just some button place. And I was like, no, but where? And he's like, no, but don't you think the slogan's cool? I'm like, yeah, whatever. But I'm like, the button, that's actually really
You're like, I
smart
need a
idea.
button.
Yeah, I was like, I want to make buttons, and then I'm going to put this design on it. And then I was like, while I was in Vancouver, made a couple hoodies, and then went to that first convention with, 500 buttons and a couple hoodies. Taylor and I went with our hoodies, and everyone's like, well, how do I get a hoodie? And I was like, I have no idea. That's not what I do. And then I kind of figured it out. And then I realized I'm in a position because, I had been on panels before, and oftentimes in panels or in interviews, people get asked, like, what's the foundation you work with? And I have worked with some in the past. And I always found that I just didn't really feel, it wasn't passionate about it. I just felt like I didn't know if I was being used in the right way. Me going to these events, am I raising money by being there? Like, how can I do it? And it just sort of all clicked that this is a way for me to give back to the community in a way. So it's just been very fulfilling. So as far as, and it's just sort of grown from there. The designs continue to come, and just sort of, there's no real set plan. It's just continually unfolding. And I find it better that way, because if I had a specific plan and goal, like I have like quarterly type goals, but only with like a month in advance. I can't try to think of the whole year, because on top of it, as you mentioned, it's my family, my job and all that kind of stuff. But I just find great satisfaction from having something outside of acting and writing that gives back to community, but also continues to build a sense of community. Because as we know, coming out of the pandemic and all that, it's really hard to find that. And even though it's online, I'm trying to do more in-person events. And, even when we were on the cruise, that was one thing I said when I was on stage, was like, as awesome it is for everybody that's out there, there's 3,000 people there, to come and get to see us be silly on stage, tell our stories, and connect with us. Really what's beautiful about this is it's 3,000 like-minded individuals that are on this cruise, and you guys all get to make friends And that to me is just a beautiful thing. And that's what I love about these conventions, and something I guess I hadn't really thought about before I started doing them. And any way that I can continue to strengthen that and bring people together just feels good.
I mean, it's so smart. It's obviously an incredible business venture, but I think the Hallmark community is kind of unique in the way we talk about this a lot, like the way the fans buy into you guys so much. And so I think giving them a way to further buy in and be a part of the community instead of being like a consumer of yours or like actively participating. I think it's
Well,
so
and that
smart.
was another thing too, was I remember thinking about it for a while before I started, like really started coming out with the shirts, because I didn't really want it to be the Ben Ayres thing. So I was like, if I give it this name, and everybody knows I'm the one who operates it, but it's not just me. It's this umbrella of this thing, which I think it helps me actually to help promote it. It makes me feel better. If it was just the Ben Ayres show, it would be a little more difficult for me. So creating a brand, all my friends have MBAs. My wife has an MBA. So business is like a big part of our life. And I think I was just thinking of it from that perspective. And then I just kind of have my favorite brands, and I just sort of do like versions of the brands that I like.
Yeah, it's super fun.
Yeah, it's like the fans own Romance University. Yeah,
Correct.
It's not like the Ayers fan club. It's like, no, this is this thing that we all collectively are a part of.
That's right. And it's like, if you love romance, books, movies, music, it falls under that,
Yeah.
So yes, the first few buttons and shirts I made were Hallmark University, but then I realized that it was also too specific, because it
Yeah.
was like, I kind of wanted it to just, and then I thought of, well, Romance University is even better. It's a better title. So yes, and exactly as you said, it's more the fans sort of own it, They get to walk around. And what's beautiful is a lot of people have told me, and I didn't go to university, a lot of people said like I missed out on that whole university vibe. And it makes me feel like I'm a part of this university alumni. And it just makes me feel proud to have that, because I didn't have it earlier in my life.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah,
That's very
it's
cool. Not something I
very
thought of,
cool.
and it was kind of a cool thing people have said.
Yeah. Speaking of Romance University and the Professor's Lounge on YouTube, you recently launched your YouTube channel, which I'm a big fan of. I am up to date. I have watched all the videos. I take
great.
notes. I have tons of questions for you. What I want to say is I think this venture, the YouTube channel, is so smart and so brilliant because you allow fans into your professional world. And knowing like on the Hallmark creator side, the fans really want to know like the nitty gritty, the behind the scenes, the motivation behind things, like all the behind the scenes details. And so it's so smart that you have set this up. You got these like bite-sized videos that are easy to consume. I just want to say brava. I think it's so fun, and congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, so I did a convention, a fun event in Vancouver a year ago at Martini Town. You guys have seen that, or you saw the video release. So when I was helping them kind of organize that, I was like, I want to do a panel, but I want it to be a different type of panel than the ones that tend to get, I don't really want to ask personal questions about this or that, or I kind of want to do a behind the scenes, especially because we're going to be on an actual lot, like where they film movies. So I'm going to make sure I have a producer, director, actor, they're all my friends. So it was the first time I've hosted something like that. And I just thought it would be fun to talk about the process of how they're made, and then go out and show them us making one with the fans being in it. I just thought that was such a unique experience to anything that's been done before for the Hallmark fans. And it did really well. And then I was like, oh, maybe I could do more of this like one-on-one interview stuff. So I started the Professor's Lounge. It was like last spring. I did a month of them, and I had Nikki come on. I had Peter Benson, Julie Gonzalo, and Taylor Cole, and that did really well, and everybody kept asking, when I'm going to do them again. But it was difficult to try to like, okay, it's going to be on this day. I'll do a Zoom link, send out the Zoom link. Oh, the actor can't do it. And it just, the scheduling I thought was kind of difficult.
Yep.
So it took me a while to go, well, what I should do is just, and it's always been my thing, because people have been like, are you going to actually open a university, or like, jokingly, classes, like that kind of thing. And I was like, I guess I could just do it myself. And then I'll just set up a questionnaire, a form. You can just ask questions and I'll answer them. So, the very first episode I did, the very first class, I really treated it like behind me were all of the students. Like, I pictured this lecture hall that I was in. But you'll notice from like the first to as they go, I get a little more comfortable in it, and trying to also myself find out exactly how I can best describe something. And again, it's all from my perspective. So when somebody asks, like, how do you develop a character, the quirks that your character has, all I can say is, this is how I do it. And, some of the things I've read or have seen. But I enjoy being able to give access to that kind of stuff and educate. Like, I really want to be able to educate people who potentially aspire to do it or are just very curious.
Yeah, that's what I really super enjoy about it. Now, I have some questions from your videos. First of all, your videos, you're in this area right now where you film your videos, right? Like,
Yeah.
they're so high quality and professionally done. We used to have a YouTube channel a million years ago. It takes a lot to like edit videos and add fun things like graphics and
light them and-
movie clips. And like, do you do that all yourself?
Well, I do have some people helping me, but I will say also, so here's another thing is I didn't want, because I've watched a lot of YouTube videos where it cuts a lot, and you can tell that maybe they didn't quite succinctly say something they wanted to say, and it kind of edits. That I didn't want to do. I was like, I want to be able to walk in, and then for 10 minutes I'm just talking and show some stuff. So maybe I could tighten it up with some of that type of editing, but I kind of think I really wanted it to feel like you're in a class as opposed to YouTube videos. Now I'm still trying to understand the whole
Jump cuts and all
the
that.
algorithm and the thing that's going on over there. So for me right now, it's like just trying to do 3 videos a week.
That's a lot.
I know, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I don't know why. Again, this is like in my head. I was like, 3 a week. That's just what I'll do. Until I can't. But, I'm just sort of seeing where it goes. And I just thought Instagram, I didn't want to just have the page full of all these videos. So I sort of needed somewhere else to go. And I felt like YouTube is a good place to go explore that long form content. Again, I'll see sort of what happens with it. But right now I'm like this is like I always say is, the second anything starts to feel like a lot of work, I just won't do it anymore.
Okay.
You know what I mean? 'Cause for me
Yes.
right now, I'm actually just enjoying it. And if it starts to, because I'm not making money off of it, I just like to do it. So if I'm like, oh, this is just drudgery, then I don't think I'm going to be able to bring my best version of myself to it. So I'll try it, and like I said, I continue to get so many questions. And yeah, like you said, bite size, like 10 minutes or less. Come or go. And if you haven't watched any of them, you can watch them all. And it's just like, you can go and watch them all if you haven't, and it won't take up that much time. And if you are one who's just kind of tuning in, 3 days a week, you can just kind of plow through it on your lunch break.
Well, I think you're right that YouTube is the right place for it, especially in terms of like viewer acquisition. Like, Instagram's not set up to be a place where you search for things. It's meant like Instagram serves your content and you consume it, and YouTube's the other way around. I think it makes a lot more sense the way you're doing it. Wendy made a comment when she was watching. She was like, here's the best part about it is like, you're giving so much away, but without having to give your personal life away. Like, you're not having to let them in on things that you're like, this is for me. And you're still giving so much. And I think that's like what the fans want. Like, they want to connect with you. And I think it's drawing, like, it's not a loud line, but I think the division is nice. We were on the cruise, we were in Kansas City, and I think the level of access the fans want sometimes is a little bit outsized in terms of what's reasonable. And I think that's like a small subset, right? But I just think you found a way to give them what they want in a way that is appropriate.
Yeah, I think I appreciate you noticing that, because I do get a lot of personal questions
I would imagine.
and I just don't answer those.
Yeah.
And I won't. And I believe it is necessary to have some distance, So even, I did post when I was down in New York with the girls, somebody was like, who's the older girl? Because I tend not to even show my family on Instagram because it's just the privacy thing.
Sure.
And my oldest daughter doesn't like it at all. She doesn't want any photos of her out there. I mean, she's on her Snapchat and doing her own little thing.
She wants to control it.
Yeah, and I respect that
Totally.
a lot, And Evie will jump on once in a while, and she's the vice chancellor, and she likes to be involved, and she enjoys sort of being on the lives and stuff like that. But as far as personal questions, that's kind of my thing. So I come on, and it's like I think of it as entertainment. I'm coming on to entertain, and it's like I discovered when I hosted that red carpet event in Kansas City that I really enjoy it. I actually enjoy, and you'll laugh. Do you know Drew Scott, the Property Brothers?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Everyone
Drew
thought
and
you were
Drew and I are good buddies. We've been friends. I mean, both of them, but Drew and I connected. We worked on Smallville together way back in the day. He was the body double for Superman. And I was Lex Luthor's right-hand man. So we had a lot of downtime in Vancouver on set. He was always reading real estate books, and we kind of connected, and we kind of hung out a lot during those days. And then I remember I saw him at a award show here in Toronto, him and his brother, and they're like, yeah, no, we just shot the first season of a reality show. We're like fixing up houses. And I was like,
Who's going to watch that?
well, good luck, bro. Now he has an empire. No, it became this huge thing. So, when I'm in LA, I see them, and just last night we were texting about some other stuff, and I was like, dude, I did this hosting gig, and it turns out I really like it. I think I'm pretty good at it. And he's like, I have been telling you that for the last decade that you need to be hosting. And I said, well, I guess you saw it in me before I saw it in myself.
So you had talked about in one of your videos about pitching your own ideas, which leads me to, I have a couple follow-up questions. One, in regards to hosting, are you pitching reality content to Hallmark Plus right now?
No. Now, a lot of people have asked about a Romance University reality type show, and I've thought about how it could work, but honestly, I wasn't happy with kind of what I was able to come up with and because, I'll be honest, I think once Hallmark Plus started, there were all of these reality series that started. There was like a push, like we would need reality shows. There were probably 3 different producers that reached out to me. They're like, hey, let's come up with like a Romance University thing and go pitch that. And I was like, okay, well, let's see what you bring to me. And I was like, that doesn't really, that's not the brand. And I just I don't know how to go about it, right? But I do have a movie idea that works. So that's probably where I'd go. And as far as hosting on Hallmark, there's nothing that has come my way yet.
Yeah.
And nothing that I have thought about pitching. I have thought about a couple shows and kind of soft pitch some stuff, but nothing yet, no.
When you're pitching, what kind of projects do you want to make?
Well, so I've got like a 3-camera old school sitcom style that we're going out to pitch. So that's not Hallmark. And then I've got a single camera comedy that we're going out with, which we already pitched to HBO and to Warner Brothers. There was a big reshuffling of the execs at Warner Brothers, and we kind of got a bit of a we're just not buying anything right now. So we put a pause on our pitch package for that. And that's why I was in LA, because we were polishing it, and we're going to be going out with it again in the new year here. So those I'm very excited about because we've been working on them for years now.
That is exciting. I love when we get to talk to actors, writers who we know a lot from Hallmark, but who tell us like, oh yeah, I'm working on something else for something outside of the network. That's very exciting. We had Ashley Williams on last week.
Yeah.
And she told us she's doing the same. So very cool. So exciting.
Yeah, I think it makes so much more sense when you guys are in other places. I mean, I think it just, honestly, I think it builds a Hallmark brand. Like, I think it brings new people in. Like, I think it's a win-win all the way around. Can we talk about social media for a second in terms of like, you talked about how it plays a big role in promoting a movie. And I think that's true. I feel like it's true for Hallmark, especially. I'm sure it's true for other brands. We're so deep in the Hallmark world. But I think people connect with like the Hallmark actors on such a personal level that they're like, I'm going to watch this just because you're in it. When you're being pitched a role, is that part of the ask? Like, this is what we expect of you? Or are you guys just like, obviously, I want people to watch my movie, so I'm going to promote it?
Oh, like, are we being asked to promote it?
Yeah. In an official capacity.
Yeah, no, I'm actually trying to think if no, so we do like, with Chelsea Overrocker, we do like these Facebook Lives,
Yeah.
and there are things that Hallmark will set up for us to do. And then there will be some interviews that Hallmark will specifically set up for us. But anything outside of that is just us kind of promoting it, really, because we know the fans love it. We want people to watch it. And as you said earlier, it's a very unique, special community of fans that love these movies. And I think they get excited when they know that we're coming out with a movie. So the second we can start talking about it, it kind of builds the excitement leading up to that movie. So that's pretty much done on our own accord.
Pretty organically.
Yeah.
Nice. Let's talk about the Christmas cruise, the Hallmark Christmas cruise. We were on cruise 1.
Yes. And did you love it? Did you love it?
We had a great time. What we loved, what we were seeing in real time, being in like the cruise Facebook groups and all that stuff at that time, you were in there asking the people who were going to be on cruise 2, like, how can I be there for you? And we just thought that was so smart, so brilliant for you to like want to know how you could serve the fans. How was your experience on the cruise?
So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I saw the Facebook group, but I was like, oh, that's cool. So I tried to add myself, and they kept kicking me out because
They
they were
probably
like,
thought you were a fake. There's
They
so
did.
many
There's
fakes.
so many.
there are so many. And the problem is there's like a Facebook fan page, which is sort of where all the fans are. But then I have my personal. So from the page, you can't join something. So I had to join it from my personal,
Yikes.
which I didn't want to do.
Yeah, you
But
don't want everyone knowing this is now the official personal account.
correct. That said, I don't even really use Facebook.
Yeah.
You know, like, I guess the messenger once in a while to like my aunts and stuff like that. Quite honestly, you know, Auntie Joanne, Auntie Lorna, this is for you. But the rest of the time, I don't really spend a lot of time there. So when I first started Romance University, I remember somebody saying like, oh, you should join some of the groups because there's a big like fan base on Facebook. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. So I was trying to join then, just be like, I'm really Ben, you know, I'm trying to kind of I want to make people to be aware of this. So I was aware of the power of Facebook. And then when I heard about those groups, in one of the lives, somebody mentioned something about being in one of the groups. I went and joined it and was kind of reading what was going on. And then I just figured I would ask, you know, because I'm like, what's not quite working?
Yeah.
Because I knew that they would make adjustments for the second one as well. I knew that feedback would be taken and they would try to do something for the second one. And one of the things that I kind of heard about was that access to individual actors was difficult because it wasn't a traditional convention where we stand behind a box and you stand in a long line for hours to come up and say hello for 35 seconds and then leave.
Yeah.
So I made it my mission to just walk out and be out there as much as I could and take selfies. And, you know, I hosted the bingo twice, once with Taylor and once with Aaron Cahill. And I got on stage and we started. And then probably after 15 minutes, I would just walk around and just sit and just take photos with everybody. Because I know that the experience of getting that selfie. And I also realized, I think once people started posting selfies with actors, everybody was like, oh, wait, I need to get one. And
Yeah.
it kind of created the second cruise, from what I understand, because it was all the same security and a lot of the same Hallmark higher ups that were there. The second cruise was much crazier. In a sense of the energy of the people. And I think it was because it was the built up excitement of watching everybody from the first cruise, waiting that next week, and then here we go. So people came on knowing what to expect and also just really excited. So we weren't really given, there were nights where like, oh, let's all go to the disco. And they're like, we don't have enough security. And we're like, what? Security? We're just going to go dance. Like, we can't. We don't. There's so many people in there, and we can't allow you guys to go. So when we were allowed to go, we were just up on the stage. They wouldn't.
Oh, interesting.
Wow.
And we were like, it'll be fine. And then we were like, listen, if anything happens, there are a lot of people in there, and we just don't want anybody to fall down or get hurt, and we just don't have security. And we were like, no, you're right. We have to be mindful. So we hung out on stage and we came and I got to tell you, the silent disco was
The most fun.
So fun.
We loved
the
it.
highlights.
Totally. I 100% agree. I mean, the fans did get a little out of control. Wendy got elbowed in the head by an overzealous Tyler Hines fan at one point. I think it was so smart that you got in that Facebook group, because there was some discord, right, happening. People just, their expectations weren't being met in one way or another. And I think it like smoothed out the experience for cruise too. Like, people went into it like, they're listening to me, I'm being heard. It was real, like a smart PR move. And I know that's not why you did it, but it worked really well in that way. I will tell you that Jonathan Bennett did tell us that Cruise 2 was younger and drunker. So that has something to do with the vibe a little bit.
Well, there you go. That would make sense. Yeah, I think it was the first time ever doing one, right?
Yeah.
So nobody really knew what to
we had
expect.
to iron it
but
out.
I think, and now the next one's bigger.
Yeah.
Big boat.
A
So
big boat. Yeah.
Big boat.
Double the number of Hallmark fans.
yeah. So I know they just went and did their little reconnaissance. They just went and did the cruise just to see what it's going to be like, and they'll
I just
report
saw
back.
that.
And it's more of a, how many shows can we be doing at once kind of thing, as opposed
Yeah.
to the one show. It's hard. I realized that. I was like, wait, so if you didn't get a ticket, or if you're standing in line, you're standing in line for a long time to try to get into a show you might not get into.
Yeah.
That's a little disappointing.
Yeah. From the fan experience, from our experience, yes, that was a disappointment for us.
Yeah, I think having multiple things happening at once, and you just don't know what you don't know. I mean, they had never done it before. And so I think working to make this one a different experience. And I think, like, we went to Kansas City as well. Obviously, you were there weekend one. And I think they had not multiple fan things happening at once, but they had multiple options of things to be doing, which I think helped out a lot.
Yeah, and there were just less people, right?
Yes.
It wasn't as big. It was a very calm experience in comparison, right?
Oh, that's interesting.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm sure weekend one in Kansas City was probably pretty bananas with the premiere of Holiday Touchdown in Kansas City, your Chiefs adjacent right there.
Yeah.
The fans were probably wild.
Hyped.
Hyped is a good word. Yeah.
But it was interesting because there was no, I guess on the ship, if you walk around, everybody is on that ship,
For
you.
you.
Yeah.
right? Where
Fair.
there, you kind of cruise around and somebody's like, what are you doing here? Like,
Yeah.
because you could go to the Kansas City experience without having bought tickets to any of
Sure.
the shows.
Yeah.
So if we popped out into the market, it would kind of take a sec for people to, you could just walk around and nobody even recognize you. They're not expecting to see you, or they're just not even.
Yeah, you could be a Kansas City local. They're like, we're just going to go to this Hallmark market, not expecting to run into,
Correct. Or maybe don't watch Hallmark movies. They're just
Yeah.
like, I want to go down and get some Christmas shopping done and go do something fun with the family, right? Where everybody on that cruise, or anybody
exactly who
that
you
bought
were.
tickets, or anybody that's going to a convention,
Yeah.
is there to see you, and they know you're going to be there.
Yes, they have spent thousands of dollars and they got their Romance University merch on, and they are ready to make you their best friend.
Yes, they are.
Okay, speaking of fan events, can we talk about you, as mentioned, hosted a Romance University fan event, and initially you said it was going to happen again this year in April, and now you're pushing it to 2026 to make it amazing. What does your vision for this event look like to build on what the last one was like?
So this one's going to be more of a red carpet type event. It's going to be, we can only have about 300 people attend. So it's going to be much smaller. We're going to have buses. They're going to take you to different locations around Vancouver where we have film stuff. We will have
Fun.
actors at different locations. We will do an actual set visit of a film that's in progress. We're going to film another one of those things on the lot. We're going to have like a big wine and cheese dinner night and all this will be included. Except you just have to kind of cover your own flight out and your
Sure.
hotels. We will take you into Langley City, which is this beautiful little old town that's got, all the fun little crafts to go shopping. We'll do a movie premiere. We'll do some Q&As, some panel stuff. So there's just way more things involved in making it really smooth, and trying to turn it around for April we could do it like a regular one. But I think, in speaking to Gemma, it was like, we just can't do it to the quality that we would want to in this time frame.
So what you're saying is people need to be on their computers exactly when those tickets go on sale to snag them.
Well, so here's another thing too, is that it will be a little more expensive than the ones
Sure.
we've done, right? Because it's going to involve, but once we sort of broke it all down, we're like, it's sort of what people will end up paying when they go to something anyway. So like, there'll be beverages and there'll be meals and stuff like that. And we'll try to do it in a way that's classy and again, a unique experience. We only want to do it if the experience is different. So we have the ability to do that. And it's also a big part, we talk about it as far as tourism BC, like we really want to celebrate where we make these movies. A large percentage of these movies are shot in the Lower Mainland of Vancouver. And, we are in talks with, Gemma's the head of the tourism board, BC. So making sure that we educate people and kind of show them where these movies get made and the importance of the community and celebrating the people that live in these communities as well. So yeah, it's all those things.
That's amazing. I was in Vancouver. Was that the beginning of December of last year? We were there for Taylor Swift, but we flew into Washington and then drove up to Vancouver. Nice. We were going to go to the Martini Town like special holiday event that they usually do. The weather was so wild that day that it was raining, and I was like, we're not going to do that, unfortunately. But we did stop in Langley, and real cute, that little main street downtown. We walked around, we shopped. It was fantastic. It was me and my daughter, my teenage daughter. It was so much fun. And I was telling Megan after I had heard on your Professor's Lounge video that that you guys are going to be doing another event. I was like, we have to go. We have to go. It's going to be so much fun. So please, keep us updated. We want to come.
I'll keep you updated.
I'm like, April 2026. We can do that.
Yeah. Clear the calendar.
Clear the calendar. We want to be there.
Speaking of clearing your calendar, in 2024, you were in 6 Hallmark movies. I imagine the experience making each one is a little bit different. Is there one that was exceptionally memorable that stands out to you?
I know somebody mentioned I was in 6. I was like, I was in 6?
Was I?
I was like, that sounds like too many. But then I guess you're right, because then I had to think about it, because the year before we filmed stuff that then aired.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the way it kind of, and then, these little cameo pop-ups. But I mean, they're all so special in a different way. And I must say that the Santa class was just such a special, unique experience, getting to just really lean into some fun, big comedy. Kim and I have known each other for a long time. I've always wanted to work together. And I feel like we just got the perfect project for the two of us. And then to have Paul be in it that much and just be around, it's not often as the lead guy that you get another lead guy that you're friends with just on set with you. So we had, you want to hear a fun story?
Yes.
I think I may have told it on stage, but I haven't really really talked about it because we were like, how do we release this? But it was, so the first week we shot at the camp. Did you guys watch the Santa class?
Of course.
Everybody check out the Santa class. It was on Hallmark. There was, so all the stuff that took place at the camp was up on the Sunshine Coast. So we all had to take a ferry up to the Sunshine Coast. And we were there at like a YMCA camp for a week, which is where we shot all of the exterior stuff and some of the interior, everything that took place at, at Kate's camp. The last day, we were like, oh, let's come up with a fun video we'll all be walking in slow motion. And it was that. I don't know if you saw me post that. Like it was Kim and I, and it was like all of the Santas doing the dance. We were recording that. We're like, this will be fun. And we're like, okay, Paul, you record. So I was kind of filming everybody, and I was like, okay, Paul, you do Kim and I. So there was a moment where Kim and I were going to come walking together. So, of course, dumb guys, there's a football on the ground. And I was like, oh, we kind of threw the football back and forth a couple times. And Paul's like, oh, this will be great. I'll record you. You guys walk up in slow motion, and then I'll throw the football to you, and you catch it, and that will just look cool. And I was like, yeah, that's awesome. So he's filming it. He's got my phone like this. We come walking out, right? So you kind of have to make your movement a little exaggerated because in slow-mo, it's So Kim's doing her thing, which is nothing. She just does nothing. She's just cool, right? She's comes out walking.
Just the coolest.
Just the coolest. And I come out, I'm doing my thing. He throws it, but because he's filming and he does this, he wasn't really watching where it was going, and it was coming quite low. And I couldn't catch it, so it was down near my foot, and I just kicked it.
Right into your own phone.
It went directly back to the camera. No! Hit the camera, hit his lip, and split it open.
No!
Now Kim cannot see blood.
Oh no.
So Paul is like, is it bad? And I'm like, I'm not lying. It was so bad. It was cut open, like it looked like a mouth inside of his lip.
Oh,
like
God.
Open. It was disgusting. And I'm trying not to panic. And I'm also like, you idiot. So I'm feeling like an idiot. Trying to make him feel okay. He's like, how's it look? It doesn't feel good. And he can see the blood. So he's like, no, Kim, just don't even look. And she's kind of going, oh no. Keeping her out. But they're filming not too far away. So we're trying to keep it on the DL because we're trying to like assess sort of what's going on. At some point, they're like, what's going on? And then the producers come over and they're like, this does not look good.
Oh no.
At all.
Oh no.
We got to get Paul back to the mainland ASAP. He's got nothing to film the rest of that day. Kim is now done. There's no ferries back. Oh my gosh. So they call and they take this water taxi, which is just a dude on a Friday night who was not expecting to have to drive back to Vancouver.
With a beer in his hand.
A couple drinks, beer in his hand. He's like, yeah, guys, come down. It's nighttime now.
Oh,
it's the ocean. They get in this boat and they're just screaming across. And he's chatting, telling some story about something, playing music, and they were just like, and then all of a sudden they hear,
no, can it only get worse, geez.
He stops and he's like, whoa, check it out, a whale. Oh my God. And there's a whale there. It's night. They're in a small boat. He's bleeding, and it's just like, and they're texting me. They're like, now there's a whale. They're sending me videos, and I'm like, oh my God. Trying to film my last scene.
Rather large whale next to our rather small boat.
Small boats, yeah. So Moby Dick, and then they get back, and he goes to get it looked at, and they do like an Invisalign stitch thing. So there's a scene where we are all at the bar. The scene where we're all at the bar in the movie, and it's like the big trivia night, and Paul's wearing his beard.
The whole time I'm processing, like, how did they cover that on camera? Because he must have been swollen. Oh,
so we changed the line. I'm like, you don't have to wear these. Like, don't. Because we were like, I was like, do you know what will actually work? Is you just have your beard on in that scene. Because that's brilliant. So he's like, we're all just in our civvies, and he's just got the beard on because he had a split lip.
Like he's method acting.
Oh,
but
my
it totally
goodness.
worked for his character.
Oh my
Perfect.
gosh.
And then by the time we came around to him having to film again, it had healed over.
Oh,
Oh,
that's so lucky.
So because he didn't then film for another full week.
Oh my gosh.
Kind of, it heals quickly, and the Vaseline, all the things. But I should post the photo. It's a great photo.
Please.
Oh,
It's a great photo.
Is the producer like, now you guys stop jerking around when?
Oh yeah, he was like, what happened? Now we did all say at least it happened to him and not me.
oh, I mean,
Gosh, yeah,
'Cause
like
I was still filming every day in every scene,
Yeah.
so that would have been. I don't know what we would have done. It was very, very stressful, and we can laugh about it now.
look, I love that you're like, did you watch the Santa Claus, that little movie I made? As if it wasn't, first of all, let me take it way back. We're the biggest fans of Russell Handline. Like, since his first Hallmark movie, we have been like championing Russell Handline. Then he has this huge year. I feel like Santa Claus was this like runaway hit. I knew it would be good. Like, we knew it would be good. We love Russell, but I'm not sure anybody, it's so late in the season. They had all these big movies that got all this promotion. And then the Santa Claus comes along and everyone's like, well, this is the best thing we've ever seen. It did win the Girls Gone Hallmark bracket. So,
it did.
yeah, like, I mean, you're like, did you see this tiny little movie I made
Well,
that
I knew you did.
everybody loved?
I mean, listen, we knew when we read the script that it was hilarious, but I've read scripts that are really good and it just doesn't turn out. There are so
Sure.
many elements to make it still what it is. And Lucy just knocked it out of the park. There's
She's
a
so
lot of
good.
moving parts. There's a big ensemble cast. When we read it and we're like, there's a puppet and there's a hippie Santa. Like, if the casting is off, that movie doesn't work.
Yeah,
Because I think it's one of the best ensembles we've ever brought together for
agree.
one of these movies. And everybody was so distinct and amazing. And I keep hearing it that on like second, third viewing, it just kind of gets richer. And I think because you sort of know these characters, you're not just discovering for the first time. And the actors all did a great job. And there's a lot of improvisation in the movie. I would love them to release a version, with
A
all the
director's
weird
cut.
stuff we did. But there's like, it was, 4 of those actors are the top improv actors in Vancouver that compete. And that's, it was a real treasure to get to be with them and watch them work. And we all got along, and yeah, it was pretty special.
You and Kim were so freaking fantastic in that movie. Like, you were just vibing so hardcore. Like, the comedy was so fun to watch. We had director Jeff Beasley on the podcast sometime last year, and he talked about the movie, that Miracle in Bethlehem, PA, that he directed that you were in.
Yeah.
And he said that, that movie, a little more serious tone. He said the entire time you were so funny. And is that where it's at for you? Do you want to be doing all comedy?
Well, not necessarily, but I mean, I would say that was probably my first strength when I started acting. That's kind of where, I remember thinking, I'm going to be on Saturday Night Live one day. That's what I wanted. To me, the height of acting would have been to be on Saturday Night Live. Different characters, broad, big, fun, committed. And then, I sort of, the first show I did was J-Pod, which was a Canadian TV series. And that's when I really got to kind of stretch those muscles and really have fun and feel quite comfortable and let a character grow over a season. And after that got canceled, I came to Toronto on a show called Dan for Mayor, which was a straight up half-hour comedy. And my character was over the top. And for a few years, that's all I was doing was comedy. And then I had an audition for a show called Saving Hope, which went on to we did 5 seasons of it. And the network was like, we can't hire him. He's the funny guy.
Oh.
And the producers were like, I don't know his other shows. All we know is he's a good actor and we want him. So they had me come back. I'd already done a callback for it. So I had auditioned, came back, and then they did what was called, I've never done it since, but they just brought me back and they had me do 3 scenes, 5, 6, 7 different ways.
Oh, wow.
And he's like, David Wellington and Alana Frank were like, we want you for this role. We don't know what the network's talking about. So let's just blow them away with what we know is your acting ability. And I was like, oh. But we just did it a bunch of different ways, and they sent it in, and then I got that part, and I started to kind of go down a more dramatic path, and that show became quite popular. And Penny Perry watched it, and she was the one who kind of gave me the opportunity at Hallmark. And I didn't really understand what the network was at that time, right? So the first one I did was Love by Chance. It was like, it was a rom-com, and it was just this, I was trying to thread the needle of trying to be a leading man, but also try to find the humor. And, I just didn't really lean into the comedy. And to be honest, the first few scripts I did didn't have a lot in it. And I think for whatever reason, that opportunity didn't really present itself to the last 3 years that I've started to get some stuff where I can kind of do some more of that, And the network's changed a bit. They like some more comedy stuff. And so it's sort of, in some ways, I feel like been this secret weapon where people are like, wait, he's funny?
For sure.
Well, I think I was going to say richens. That's not a word. It deepens. It makes the story richer, like a romance or like a more serious tone. Miracle in Bethlehem, PA. Like the addition of comedy. It doesn't have to. The movie's not a comedy, but infusing those elements, like it can be two things at once.
Yeah, and so Miracle in Bethlehem was a very interesting one because the original script wasn't funny at all. There was no comedy. Jeff knew who I was. I knew who Jeff was. He knew he wanted somebody to come in and be funny. But he's like, I know it's not there yet. We're kind of working on a rewrite. But I want us to come in and just, they want it to be a comedy. And I was like, or have more comedic elements.
Yeah.
More rom-com. Because Dayspring in the past had been doing pretty dramatic, faith-based movies about loss and grieving and these types of themes. And they were like, well, let's try one that's got, it deals with some of that, but it's also like not so heavy. So working with Jeff and Laura Vandervoort, she's done a couple Hallmark movies, but this was kind of her first big into this sort of world. So, and I know her personally. We had worked together on a show called Bitten. So she really trusted me, and we went into that process. And the way Jeff shoots, I'm sure he talked about it, is he cross shoots. So instead of the camera being on me, for me to do the entire scene with all the lights, and then you take all the lights down, you turn the cameras around, and then you do Laura's coverage. What he does is he has lights. He works with a specific DP every time. So we're both lit, and he cross shoots. So she's being shot and I'm being shot at the same time. Action's called. Now, why that's great is that you can improvise and go off script and just find stuff because you can cut between the two.
Yeah.
And we did that. There are so many moments in that movie. Like, I've had a lot of people say it was like one of the best arguments I've ever seen with like my ex. And we walk into the house and we're getting this big argument around the table. And that whole scene was improvised.
Oh, wow.
And there was just so many moments like that where, and it took me a bit, because I knew who Jeff was, but we hadn't really worked together. And it takes a couple days to feel confident with your director and with notes that they give you. So I was a bit kind of guarded probably at first. And then once we found our groove, like I feel like we really turned that movie into something special.
He spoke very highly of you in our interview with him. Yeah, he was.
No, he's got a very special ability to bring out the best in everybody, but ultimately bring out the best in his crew. And he has the same crew that he continues to work with. And what happens is you just hit the ground running. So you're not trying to, for your first 5 days, understand everybody's role, or you're dealing with some very junior crew people that don't quite understand. And there's a lot of strain, there's 100 people now just being brought together.
Yeah.
And his are such well-oiled machines because he knows everybody, and it's like a big family. Like there's a scene where we have our big dinner, and I arrived to set and I was like, there's like 4 turkeys and like just some of the best fixings I have ever seen. And it turned out it was like 3 of the crew members' moms and grandmas that just baked a bunch of stuff to be brought to set.
Oh.
And I was like, it's such a beautiful community.
Yeah.
Shooting in Winnipeg has its limitations, but I will go there anytime to work with Jeff and get to do another movie. And we're always talking about it. Anytime he's like, I'm working on this movie, I'm pitching you, we're always trying to develop stuff. And I think when you find your people, you want to continue working with them because it's just exciting and fun. You get 3 weeks of having a good time and making making a movie.
Yeah.
You mentioned the projects you have been working on. Are you like working from a writing standpoint? Do you want to direct those? Do you want to produce those? Are you hoping to act and produce them?
They are writing. One of them is writing and acting, and one of them it would just be created by.
Oh,
And
fun.
We would pass it on. Yeah.
What do you have? Is there anything you have coming up that you can tease, talk about?
I don't think I'm allowed to talk about them yet, but I'm leaving tomorrow somewhere fun.
Oh, fun.
Hey now.
Hey.
So we will be seeing Ayres on Hallmark in 2025.
We'll be seeing Ayres on Hallmark in 2025. Maybe 6 times. Hopefully 6 times again.
I love in Santa Tell Me that you got to play that supporting role. I mean, look, having you in that supporting role as one of the Nicks, it's Benjamin Ayres, right? Like, it's kind of big time. On the other hand, for you, is it a little bit like the pressure's off? Like, I don't have to be the leading man. I can just be the fun, silly Nick.
Yeah, it was great. I got to come in and be the fun, silly Nick. But it was also interesting because the way we shot it, because we also kissed, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm not going to play it, of the Nicks, it was the one that you sort of would go, you could
see it.
just written that way, right? I think originally it was written more like he gloats a lot and talks a lot about his achievements. But I can't remember if it sort of got removed or I just didn't want to lean into that. It said that in the script, but I was like, he just has accomplishments and he's just going to be humble about them instead of trying to be get points because of it. So I sort of played against that a bit. And in my mind, I was like, I'm just playing this like I'm the guy until I realized that she's dating multiple men at once. And then it gets weird, right?
Then I'm going to fight him.
So
Yeah.
I didn't really try to play it like I'm not the guy.
I mean, look, you know who the guy is, but you also, as a viewer, you want to be rooting for one of the Nicks too. You want it to be maybe it could be Nick number 1.
Well, so here's the thing too, is I was like, if you're a Hallmark fan, it's the Daniel Lissing, Aaron Krakauer reunion we've all been waiting for. If you've stumbled upon the network and you have no idea their history,
why not me?
Then you don't know, right?
Yeah.
So while I do think sometimes about our audience, I also just think of it as a standalone movie without anybody knowing that history. It kinda happened.
Sure. I was not familiar with Daniel Lissing. Like I said at the top, I'm a former Hallmark hater. So I'm fairly new to the Hallmark genre. And
We've been making
Okay,
this
so
podcast for
explain
4.5
that.
years.
So because I'm aware of I like the movies. I don't like the movies. Let's watch them together and review them. This type of format. How long have you been doing it now?
4.5 years.
Okay, 4.5 years. And what was the impetus? First question.
we had another podcast, like a women's lifestyle podcast, and it was nearing the holiday season. And one night I'm laying in bed, and I've told this story before. I was listening to Danny Pellegrino, who is a podcaster. He also wrote and was in a Hallmark movie this year. He's a big fan of Hallmark. And I was listening to his podcast, and he was talking about Hallmark. And I thought, that's funny. I said, I'm going to pitch to Megan, we should do a Hallmark review podcast because she and her husband watch a lot of Hallmark movies. I, at that time, had never seen one. And I'm into murdery stuff, that kind of genre.
You like Lifetime or not?
I do enjoy a Lifetime movie. Yes, I do. I like documentaries. I like, that kind of stuff. So I thought I'm going to take on this kind of bring this perspective to these movie reviews. And at first kind of leaned into I'm this hater of it, but I'm telling you, I have come around a lot. There are actors that I really enjoy. There's writers I really enjoy. There's directors I really enjoy. Those are the movies I'm drawn to. I have a true appreciation.
So do you think Because that is the interesting thing, is that there's a comfort that happens when you know, you're like, oh, so and so wrote this, so and so directed this. You're like, oh, it's one of my favorite actors, and you instantly, the second they come on screen, you feel comfort, you feel warm, you're just excited, you feel like you're hanging out with your friend. But it develops, because when you started, you didn't know any of us or them,
Nothing. No.
right? So
Yeah.
so is it? So what is it? Because you remember when you first started watching them, you were probably like, I don't know, they're kind of a little bit surface. They look, just the way they look, you instantly know if you turn it on, you're like, this is a Hallmark movie or adjacent, you know? So is it the comfort of knowing them that shifted for you? Or what happened inside of you, do you think? If you can.
Articulate it. That's a really good question. There is something about the comfort, the familiar, the trope. I know I'm going to get a happy ending. Like I said, I watch a lot of murdery stuff, not so happy endings. And I just have a true appreciation for the work that goes into it now that I didn't have before. I don't know anything about anything. I'm not an actor. I don't come from that world at all. I just know what I like to consume. And if it makes me feel good, or if I like what I see is happening, if I like what the actor's doing, or I like the direction, like we'll redo this podcast and I'll be like, I don't know anything about the lighting, but the lighting was freaking fantastic in this movie. So there's just something about it that brings me such joy these days. And I'm all in on it. That's the best I can explain it.
Well, I think it's this, though. We're almost 400 episodes into this podcast.
Wow.
Not every movie that we watch is a good movie. Not every non-Hallmark movie that we watch. We don't ever set out to make a takedown podcast. There's no joy in that. But I think we know Hallmark as a genre now, this many movies in. We know what makes a good Hallmark movie. And I also think there's been huge strides in the past few years in terms of the quality of the movie, the quality of the writing. But I also think, we sit here and talk to you. We talked to Ashley Williams last week. The way that you guys connect with your fans, the next time I watch, I'm going to be like, there's my friend Ben Ayres, right? Yeah. So then I'm watching you do your thing. And I think that is a big part of it.
Yeah, and I think if I take a look at, they have been introducing a lot of new actors, which is great. They know nothing about this world. So they come into it we've made so many now that even with something like Miracle in Bethlehem, where originally the script just wasn't quite there, we know how to make it better. We know how to, it's I understand the genre so well now that I just think if you put the right cast in there, it's just going to be good, because we know how to make the adjustments that need to be made. And if you're new, because I remember that feeling when I first started, I was like, I don't even, after I did my first one, got a call to do another one. I was like, I just did one. How does this, what's happening here? I didn't realize that it's an old school studio system that continues to reuse the same people, which is wonderful, and does not exist on any other network.
No.
I'd say that's an HBO actor. There's no, I guess there's a similarity somewhat to daytime soaps in that that's a very niche thing.
Sure.
Know? I don't want to necessarily compare it to that, but there is that, and it does have, there's a real love or hate for those as well, as there are with Hallmark. I get it. They're when people ask, and I'll be like, if I say a Hallmark movie and it's somebody that doesn't know me or know the world, and they're like, oh, those are so cheesy to my face. I'm
oh my gosh.
Or they'll just say, they can't help but say something.
Yeah.
That doesn't affect me anymore, but it's people have a visceral response to it one way or another. But it's so pop culture now. The fact that Saturday Night Live almost makes some type of joke about it every, a few times a year, and every late night talk show host, it's become, Lacey's now just on Fallon talking about Hallmark movies. So it's gone to a whole new level, especially, oh, I don't know, how about we just do a movie with the NFL?
Yeah, right. It's so funny Megan was telling me a story that happened yesterday. she was talking about how she has a Hallmark podcast, and you tell the story.
Well, someone brought it up, and someone else there was like, "Oh, but did the blind ice skater find love?" And I was like, I got real defensive. I'm like, "That's not actually what it's like anymore."
Yeah.
But I was like, "Look, it's kind of like I can say things about my family, but you can't say things about my family because you don't know." I think we're real protective of like the Hallmark community, the Hallmark brand. Like, I just think we're real champions of it. I don't know how we became the Hallmark. It's just so ingrained in us, but. We just have a ton of affection for the people who make these movies on all levels, from costume designer to actor to writer. So, I mean, it's a cool thing that we get to do for a job. And we're so thrilled that you took time out of your insanely busy schedule to sit here and chat with us about the ins and outs of it.
I can chat about this stuff forever. With that in mind,
Yeah.
each of you have to ask a question that I will not answer now, which I will do on the next Professor's Lounge.
Oh.
Put you on the spot.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
All right, I have a question.
Okay, great.
Go first.
You have incredible chemistry on set with the people you work with. And what is your process? Like, you knew, like, let's talk the Santa class, right? You knew Kim going into that movie. So that helps, right? That you have a relationship going in, but that's not always going to be the case. Do you have a process for developing that chemistry and that rapport with your co-stars?
It's funny. I'm like, I just want to answer it.
Oh, I was like waiting for the answer. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to write that down. A process.
I mean, I can even send you this video clip if you want to cut it in, if you need it written out.
Oh, that's great. Do that.
Okay, here's my question. Your career spans a wide range of genres, from supernatural dramas like The Vampire Diaries to legal dramas like Family Law. How do you approach transitioning between such different roles, and is there a genre or project you'd love to explore more in the future?
Again, here I was about to answer it. I was like, oh, I'm going to save that. That's a great question. Thank you.
Cool.
Perfect.
I was going through your IMDb. I was like so surprised to see that you were in the show The L Word, one of my favorite shows of all time. Love that show.
I can hardly I can kind of remember being on set for that.
Really?
Kind of. There was a, those were those roles where I have like day player stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Roll in, you kind of, it's so, it's this big show, but you've only got a couple lines. And I can kind of remember being there. Can't remember what I said. Can't quite remember my character.
Funny.
That's so funny. That is so funny.
Those first ones.
And your other show, the Family Law, so that's a Canadian show. Is that correct? But it airs here in the States on the CW.
Correct. But I call it Suits Vancouver. It's beautiful. They shoot Vancouver for Vancouver. It's very cinematically shot. Great team of people. Yeah, I was very happy to get to go and work with those guys and get to play something again a little different.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go and watch that. We can cut all this out here, just because I saw Victor Garber is in it from Alias, who I freaking love, and so I'm like,
he's the best. I mean, that was getting to work with Jewel was amazing because I kind of knew her a bit, but getting to spend that time. But the best part was we would shoot in the city and we would wrap and go out for dinner with Victor. Like Jewel, Victor, and I would go out a lot. He loves his one glass of wine. We'd go for some oysters. He tells us amazing stories. It's the best.
Man, you're living the life, dude.
Well, we will leave a link to your episode of the Professor's Lounge so people can check out your answers to those questions. People can keep up with you on YouTube. We will leave a link to that channel. And Instagram, is that the other best place to find you?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. And thank you
so much
for listening to this episode of Girls Gone Hallmark. If you love this podcast, we love your 5-star ratings and reviews. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.
All right, friends, before we go, just a quick heads up. You're about to hear some ads. These little gems help us keep the show running and the Hallmark love flowing. So do with that info what you will. Grab a snack, hit the skip button, or maybe, just maybe, listen in and discover your new favorite product. Bye.